Could you operate that arm when it's not attached to you?
Yes. So that's the thing where everybody is like, this is crazy.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. This isn't China's fault. This is yours.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care.
Welcome to episode 5 of The Next Move. I'm your co-host, Keegan.
Sandeep.
And roll. So, guys, we got a couple of topics today. So, automation, AI, and the battle for the future.
Uh-oh.
So,
Yeah.
the first one here, video, is about kind of interesting. This young lady was talking about how Indeed, she fails to selling her user data. So, we'll take a listen.
There's this really crazy theory going on right now because Indeed and all these job search websites have thousands of jobs that say they're hiring, but everyone that's applying is not getting hired. And some guy actually did a test where they had hundreds of people fill out applications and no one hired them or even got a call back. And so the running theory is that they're using all people's data and selling it to bigger companies. So when you send all your information in, like your first name, your last name, where you're located, your resume, where you've been, they're taking that information and selling it to bigger companies and holding on to it because right now data is the new gold. And that's kind of scary. What do you think?
So
what do you think?
well, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised because there's so many job postings. I'm kind of like, I've known in the past, I've seen job postings like sit there for I swear, like a couple of years.
Yeah.
Like the same information, the same job.
Well, and I've also seen too where being an employer looking to hire people and you get 100 resumes for a job and the job is say for X engineering role, and I've seen pizza delivery, fitness instructor, and they just don't, fit that role, so therefore they're not going to get that job. So I guess that could be part of it, maybe. I don't know. Is there something else going on here? I do think data is gold, and I'm sure there's companies selling it. I don't know what the terms of service are for some of these job boards, right? They'll tell you in that terms of service if they're going to sell your data or not.
Well, another thing too, we come from a generation of, we didn't have internet when we were growing up. I remember going into, Discount Tire, Little Caesars, and filling out job applications, actually filling it out.
Yep.
We didn't have this, ability to do it online and apply for 1,000 jobs to be able to.
You had that personal connection too when you went in to fill out a job application. You'd meet the hiring manager, you'd shake their hand, you'd start to fill out some of the paperwork there even maybe before he left. So
I definitely think that's changed, and data is definitely is a new currency basically, and in different sectors, and doesn't matter what sector you're in. So I think maybe some of these things are aware because they're not filtering the data out, or they have so much data they don't have the good application to filter it out. And I don't know, I posted somewhere, made a comment, or somebody did a post on the data, and I made a little comment. I said, having a data is gold. It is good, but analyzing that data is even more crucial.
Yep.
So analytics of it. So where are we filtering through? Are we using it in the correct way? What is the application? Are we using same cookie cutter, basically algorithm for everything?
But what would these job boards be selling data? What information from your resume are they going to sell?
I think it's less of. I'm not sure.
Age, location.
Well, here's
but
another.
That's pretty much public now.
Yeah, that's what this I guess was my point too.
I don't think there's a monetary value to that.
Sell off your resume.
Here's the catch.
What do you think?
How do I put this? I swear that if you put your resume out there, you'll start getting random phone calls from
I didn't even put a
telemarketers.
resume out there. I'm still getting text. This is
Yeah, but-
Emily, and this is Sonia,
from
and this is
recruiting.
whoever.
Yeah, and it's really kind of
Yeah,
I guess you say
I don't even put
nuts.
resumes out there. I'm still getting all those texts every day, and
Yeah.
they're trying to take me to dinner. Obviously, I don't know what. Seriously, like, getting these texts where they're basically trying to engage you. Once you engage, then they're like, oh, by the way, we're like this and that, and I'm like, what's going on? Where are you getting the information? So it may not be from that. It may be just a public your LinkedIn profile. They use some kind of software to just scrape that.
Yep.
You know.
Probably the only last comment I have on this topic is kind of interesting. I've been seeing people putting posts on LinkedIn and whatnot as in, this is my original resume, then I throw it through ChatGPT or some type of AI type service, and it's restructures the resume, and then they put it out there, and then all of a sudden now they're getting calls. So that kind of tells you, they're probably using some type of AI
And there's
software.
some AI filters and
To be able to
course.
capture certain data.
and certain keywords.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of a crazy world, and obviously data's king.
Yep.
So going to a completely different topic is this, I guess you should say, a robot that young lady, she can detach it. So it's probably better for us to watch it than me trying to describe this, because this is something I have never seen before in my life. And obviously we've seen it in movies, but never real life.
Could you operate that arm when it's not attached to you?
Yes. So that's the thing, and we've posted about it on social media, and that's what everybody is like, this is
What?
crazy,
Oh,
mind-blowing.
we've got to see this.
We have.
We'll just help to
Crazy.
the.
It's completely wireless, so you can actually just detach the hand like that,
You're thinking about it.
and I can still operate it the same way as if it was attached. Make it move.
That is
It's
incredible.
That's the Skynet
Unbelievable.
This
from
is.
Terminator 2 right
can
there.
do that.
Yeah.
Are they getting us prepared for aliens or what?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously some crazy type technology. Obviously, we've seen it in movies, Terminator 2, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But nowadays, like, who would have thought? Would you thought at this time when you watched Terminator 2, this would really
No.
happen?
No, that I made that comments a couple of times. I'm like, the things are moving fast. Some of the things we're thinking, oh, it's gonna take a decade, and they already by the time we shoot our next episode, they're already in play.
Yep.
So these things are moving fast, and technology with that. I think I've seen that video before where she's actually using her brain neural waves or neural senses somehow to basically a processor in her arm. Then that process is connected Bluetooth to the actual hand.
And there's some other similar technologies that I've seen where people are mimicking hand gestures and movements, and there's other things out there where people are thinking, "Hey, move this," and their arms do it, right? So,
Yeah.
But to see it,
not just see it, but it's the craziest thing is we're talking about it right now is like, for us, yes, it is like a few seconds shock, and then we are so used to it. All of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, because of the Bluetooth, we're like, she's able to do it. But it is pretty groundbreaking to me. It's like, where we are able to do it, we are giving power to people who may never thought, they can do certain tasks, and now they're able to do it like, if they would have their limbs, and it's empowering a lot of people on the plus side. But my always concern is if this is getting used for a good for the humanity, and how this may be used by the evil to do some.
You can. Well, this kind of gives you the, I guess you say, the idea. At least this comes to my head. I can not like I have my limbs, obviously, but what I mean is I can use something to control it and walk in the house. Like I did see this. It was kind of funny, and this morning about somebody let a Tesla car drive itself around in a parking lot while cops saw.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, so the cops saw the Tesla just run a stop sign or do a rolling stop, and it kept going. So obviously the cop pulled it over, thinking there's somebody in it, and there's nobody in there. So who do you give a ticket to?
Yeah.
And what you're alluding to is kind of walking in those type of environments. Like,
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. Our mechanism for our ethic and laws and so on, how is our government thinking about how to regulate so it's not any technology, it is used for benefit for the humanity, not against it. So,
Well, our government's probably using it from a military perspective, right? And they probably have other amputees that have wounds that they're probably working on some secretive operations like this behind closed doors for military members. who
right.
maybe
I mean,
get hurt.
I get the good part, but are they I mean, are they going to put in a mechanism, or are they going to have a whole different executive or Congress division where they're regulating this technology, especially, so it doesn't harm people.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Have
all of a
some-
sudden, it reminds me of this movie. I don't know what movie it was, where they're basically technology is enslaving humans, right? So only few handful of people enslaving majority people because they're using technology. So, how our governments do that, or is there ethics organizations? Is there safety organizations being formed? So that's all up in the air.
kind of, I guess you say, walked us into the next topic or the next
We
video.
always do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without planning it.
Yeah, no planning here.
So
I'm not known for planning.
so this is one from I forgot this company
that
out of-
one.
Yeah, I forgot the name of the company, but they had an issue.
I don't think they want to
No.
tell the name of the company anymore.
No, we're good. We'll leave them out. But this is an example of what, something that bad could happen. So it looks like he loads the software in. He's not expecting this to happen.
Wait, okay, I didn't watch the whole thing. Wow,
Wow.
it's following him.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. So exactly, I mean, end of the day, those things are machines.
And all that was probably a wrong line of code or enter when he didn't mean to hit enter or push a button
Yeah.
on
Oh,
accident.
it's a
and-
corruption, right? He corrupted a code somehow
Yep.
because what he meant, it didn't ran through the right channels and didn't save it at the right
But now,
library or whatever.
What was the fault there? Was it was it supposed to be doing something and to make it look almost like, hey, it's trying to attack him, or was it actually trying to attack him? Right? I mean, you're kind of your mind goes that way of like, wait, what went wrong here?
What was
Yeah.
that movie? iRobot?
Oh
was
yeah,
that?
the
Yeah.
iRobot.
Was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
Will Smith, he freaking just shoots one robot, and the other one, the one that's actually the bad one, kind of steps out of the line.
Yep.
Was
Or
this the one?
that-
Is this the
it
one
was-
trying to step out of the line, or what?
No. It was.
Yeah, well, this is kind of my question, right? Is it in our minds we're
Yeah.
sitting here thinking that looks like it's going rogue and
Mm-hmm.
it's trying to attack the guy, when in reality it's probably a wrong line of code
It's a code.
somewhere.
It's
and
a machine.
He,
It's
he
a
did
code.
something wrong, and it's supposed to be walking,
it's
and it
just
can't
like-
walk, and because if you saw it was hanging
It's-
there.
So it's just like, okay, some cars, right? Because nowadays the cars, the pedals, they don't have actual mechanism on the accelerators. They don't have the actual hardwire connection to the brakes. They are actually connected by the sensors. So your pedals, there's a sensor underneath. They're pressing,
Yeah, and
on
if
that sensor,
it
right?
knows how much force to put on the brakes.
Right. So, and you've seen the cars where people, cops are chasing because they're not able to stop, and it's a malfunction, right? But because that thing look like human, and it kind of touches us a little more, like because
Yeah.
we've seen too many movies, and
Right.
we know how those movies start. They start like that.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, something like this, we're walking into something different, and I know this from being in the industry, manufacturing industry, that, at least this is what robot programmers tell me. If it's programmed to hit a wall, it's going to hit the wall every time.
Yep.
And for some reason, it did that. And maybe he was trying something. Maybe he had, a space or a character out of place. And
Well, and I was going to just mention that, like you said, on an industrial manufacturing robot, I've seen them sometimes freak out. We'll say for some odd reason it does a turn or flip or something happens, and it had crushed a I-beam before.
Yes.
So if that looked more like a human or something, and somebody at 15 years ago was able to record that, we would have been like, oh my goodness, it's trying to take over, or it's trying to break free.
Yeah.
Right. But because it's more of an industrial style robot, we just think, oh, okay, something was wrong in the code, a sensor was broken, something happened. Right.
That and to your point, I seen that happen working with industrial robots. So what happened is, like, you got your, I want to go too details, but like PLCs and the program, and you stop that and the program is not totally fully finished, and you stop in the middle of the program. Somehow he stopped it, whatever we did. And instead of starting from the beginning where all the housekeeping is, you now starting it from the middle.
Yeah.
So when you're starting from the middle, it's because it's want to go home or whatever, and it did not really get
Doesn't
into
follow the normal path.
It didn't go do the whole housekeeping, and it just slam the fence out or slam whatever right next to it.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So it's
important.
Generally human error.
It is.
When you see something like
It is.
that.
It is.
And generally, I'm going to guess in the future we're going to see a lot more
honestly,
like this.
guys like us, we've been through the industry. We understand that that's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Those type of situations going to happen. But obviously, you got to do what your best to ensure that doesn't happen and make
Yeah.
sure everybody's safe. Make sure, I always say, make sure it's going to feel safe.
Yep.
And that's kind of the tough part about this, about doing
Yep.
all that. So, any last words on this particular topic?
I think it is. It's still anything like that gonna be highlighted because we are not fully sold on these things. People who work with them, they know what it is, and people who never came across
Yep.
robots or any sort of way.
I'm chalking that one up to human error now. If it
Yeah.
does it again 100 different times with 100 different kinds of robots that they're programming, then I'm going to start to get a little nervous.
Yeah.
But for now,
For right
human
now,
error.
it's human error. No, I concur. So, another, I guess you say a completely different area. So 3D printing. I know this is something we talked about last time. Mm-hmm. And looks like Starbucks did a 3D printed store in Texas.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the areas you can get away with something like this, meaning nice weather. It's not Michigan.
No earthquakes,
Yeah.
no freezing and thawing.
So
And
a
that's
whole 3D printed building.
rapidly done too.
So
Brownsville, Texas. Wow.
And you
we
can see the
talked
different
about
lines,
this, right?
too.
We
Not,
talked.
not for grocery stores, but
No. We talked about it now, and my whole thing was I'm for it.
That was more for homes, right? I think last
Yeah, this-
time was
this was
more a
homes.
smaller. You're looking at maybe 1,000 square foot home, whereas
Yeah,
here,
Yeah, but not
now you're
not an
looking
actual
at
store.
an actual
store.
full store.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Well, yeah, and so a lot of those things like that 3D printed, in my opinion, that's gonna be new norm soon enough, because
Again, I think certain applications, right? You look at it, certain areas, like Raul just pointed out, certain locations, it probably is going to be feasible to do this and makes sense.
yeah, and it's a progression too. So it's started in Texas, and most of those 3D printed houses they were started in Texas as well. And I don't know, maybe it's the same company that's doing it, but they're most of them. I came across about a year or 2 years ago. There was a gentleman who was trying to recruit some integrators to build a program for him to do that 3D printed house, and I don't know what happened to it. So I think most of the time the funding didn't.
And I
came
was going to
through.
say, I think a lot of that too is government funding being pushed and grants and
Yeah,
being
and-
able to get these loans. So
Yeah.
I'm sure Starbucks, on top of getting all of the TV and recognition, is getting some sort of kickback as well for doing that.
Well, that too, and again, it's Starbucks, right? The coffee.
They've got the
coffee-
money. They've got the money to spend on.
it
it.
says 20 cents coffee, you
well.
sell it for $6. Yeah, you can make.
Yeah.
You got the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I sent a friend of mine who's in the construction business a video, not necessarily this one, but one of those 3D videos of, 3D houses getting built. And he was saying that I sent him another one. It was like a styrofoam. Like these guys are putting styrofoams now.
Blocks.
Yeah. And so I sent him that. And he goes, yeah, that's kind of becoming the new norm. Like, people are starting to go this
Is that
direction.
just insulation?
No, like
blocks,
the whole
or-
house, like is. I should
And
have.
then they
put
spray
that
it.
in,
Yeah,
but-
well, maybe next one.
And a new thing nowadays is that in the back in days, like people built a house off, and they said, "Oh, this gonna be here for 100 years. My 6th generation's gonna live here," and all that stuff, right? Nowadays, people are not building as permanent as they used to.
You bring up a good point. So, how long do these 3D houses last? Like, do you?
I mean, it's concrete,
Yeah, if it's concrete.
it's artificial rock.
Well, yeah. Well,
Man-made
alluding to
rock.
is if you want to make any improvements or anything, like how do you
Change the wall.
Yeah, like you want. To
And
change
that's what I'm
something.
saying is like, because if some other, like, let's say Starbucks there, I don't know, next 10 years, 20 years, whatever. And after that, some other company wants to come in. They're just going to tear the whole thing down and they're just going to build something new.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be, and they can recycle the whole concrete. They can take that back to the freaking gravel pit and recycle it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe this is the new future, but again, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, and
no,
your point too about home ownership, I think average is 7 years in a house. I think people stay now 6 different houses. So if you think of it that way, yeah, your home for life really isn't a common thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole environment too. Depending on what you are, like, job. Before it was, people were tied up to farming, and somehow they just couldn't just move. Like, oh, I gotta move my land and take it with me. No, nowadays it's like it's basically your car, and you don't even need to take your car.
Your phone.
It's just your phone,
Yeah.
and you just move somewhere, and there's if you want to move stuff with you, or you have a garage sale, So people are not as permanent to a location as they used to be. So I think that, and I think
kinda
that would
wonder
be a new
now.
norm.
I kind of wonder now that you bring that up, is it going to be, now they got these kind of, I don't know, square homes. In a way, they kind of look like a trailer house home.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like you could just, plop it on the land and lay it down. And literally looks, obviously not a trailer home, but looks like an actual house, or very easy and maneuverable. I kind of wonder if that's going to be the new norm moving forward.
I don't
Maybe.
know.
And maybe in places like Tornado Alley, right, where you have all the modular homes that are there, maybe something like this is a better option, and for a roughly similar cost. And it's safer, and you don't have to worry about.
Well, just move your home out of the tornado zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Well,
Interesting.
yeah.
very, very interesting. Well, next little topic here is about the self-driving semi. So,
Oh yeah,
Cool.
that's pretty big in right now.
yeah, becoming a more and more common thing.
All right, next time you're driving down the road, keep an eye out. That big rig next to you might not have a driver. I'm Kurt the Cyber Guy. Follow me at cyberguy.com and see why hundreds of thousands of people get my newsletter for free. Well, my friend Jessica Holmes was the traffic reporter when I worked in local news in Los Angeles. She's now an anchor, and I recently asked her what she had learned about traffic and safety and all her time in the traffic helicopter. Well, she said something interesting. Never drive next to a big rig, especially a heavy tanker. So Remember all that talk
It's a
about
normal truck.
self-driving
It's not look
semi-trucks?
like a space shuttle.
Well, they're not just
Like,
talking
some
anymore.
of the
They're
other companies
a
that are
reality.
building.
Yeah,
As
make
we
it look
speak,
different.
Aurora,
Yeah,
purpose.
this
a
is. I
self-driving
don't even
tech
know. Is
company,
this like a
launched their
diesel powered?
autonomous trucks in Texas this month between Dallas and Houston, with plans to expand to New Mexico and Arizona by the end of the year. That's right, while we're all going about our daily lives, these high-tech haulers quietly hit the roadways in the Lone Star State, cruising at speeds between 25 and 75 miles an hour. Now, you might be wondering, is this safe? I'm wondering. Well, Aurora says absolutely yes. Just before the launch, they dropped their 2025 driverless safety report. It is packed with details on everything they'd want you to know about these driverless semi-trucks. According to their safety report, Aurora is using a safety, case-based approach adapted from industries just like aviation and nuclear to inform, guide, and determine that their technology is acceptably safe to operate on public roads. Now, they drill into the details on risk management, redundancies, cybersecurity, and the remote assistance stuff. They're calling it the most transparent safety report ever released ahead of driverless launches. But not everyone's convinced. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association says that Aurora's safety claims feel more like marketing than real assurance. They're skeptical because the report leans heavily on simulation data and supervised testing without much actual real-world proof. And let's be honest, no simulation can fully predict what happens out on the open road. What do you think? Ready for all this, or does it freak you out a little bit, kind of like it does me? Let me know in the comments below. More crazy cool tech like this at cyberguy.com, where you can find out why hundreds of
So what
thousands
do you
of
guys
people
think
get my
about
newsletter
this?
for free.
Well, I think it's awesome technology. I am concerned with this somewhat, of course, about some of the jobs, as I think the number one job for high school educated men in this country is being a semi-driver. So if you have now, say, and you're always telling me it's going to happen faster in the next 5 to 10 years. I was going to say 10 to 15 years, but say 5 to 10 years, this starts happening more and more. You're going to have a lot of people out of work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
the thing is, I think the last couple of episodes we talked about when assembly line came across, right? And those people who were not needed because they're more efficient, and they pivoted to providing services to the people who were actually working, right? On the lines. Same thing on this one, in my opinion, is those trucks that they're still gonna need tires.
Yep.
They're gonna still need a place to park. They still need services. They still need other repairs.
And for now, this is the other thing that kind of shocked me is for now the front end, it's almost the exact standard
It's a
semi.
Peterbilt.
Yeah.
I would imagine in the future they're going to have that cab
Looking-
completely ripped out and look completely different.
Well, they may not. So the reason I say that is they still may have a person in there, even though this report says
May
like
require
they require a person in
sleeping
there
in the back.
to. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to qualify to the CDL level. The one.
Well, I actually kind of played devil's advocate a little bit here. So I have a friend that, he pitched this technology a couple years ago. And the catch is right now, because of the CDL license, I believe that's what they need
It is.
to be able to drive a semi.
Yep.
There's becoming fewer and fewer people getting that license. And so it's becoming harder to find drivers. So the idea behind this concept is that the CDL driver can run this semi remotely, but they only care about the city, but not the highway. So that way,
because there's more things that could happen in driving 25 miles an hour in downtown
there's
Detroit.
more- It's not, like I always say, it's not your driving you have to worry about. You have to worry about how other people are cutting you off and not seeing you.
Well, here's the catch. Like, kind of in a way, maybe it inclines people to do this more if they allow them to be able to run the truck remotely. Alluding to your point, the adjustment.
Okay, so they already have on the construction sites, they're working remotely. They already have that.
Okay.
We can show one of these days. But This one is, I think they're gonna need a person in the cab. The reason I say that, seen that the previous video, the robot,
Oh, I know.
right?
Yeah.
I'm just giving you an example. Seen that robot? It is a machine. It is programmed. Yes, there's a sensors. So somehow the cable got pinched to one of the sensors. I'm just saying, whatever reason. All the cable failed because of the manufacturing fault.
Or somebody tries stealing the semi.
You know, that. And now that cable, you know, because of that, the sensor is malfunction, and you got a semi parked in the middle of 94. What do you do?
Well, and actually, now that I'm thinking about this a little bit more, it could be more like aviation. Whereas with takeoff and landing,
Yes.
the pilots are very active. During mid-flight, it's
putting it
basically
in.
hands off.
Yeah, they're
right?
just putting an autopilot.
And that could be something where, like
I think
you mentioned,
I think that is more sustainable, and I think that is more where they probably gonna go. It's not gonna be 100%, but the requirements for CDL, like you know, you have to pass certain tests, certain qualifications, and this and that. They may go down. They may not be. So more people maybe actually be qualified to drive a truck. So I don't know. I'm always kind of thinking there was a positive side of it. But I think there'd be actually more people going to be qualified to drive a truck than what it is right now. Sorry, one more thing.
Yeah.
There was a news out of California. They just busted a school, trucking driving school.
Really?
Oh yeah, they just busted a school, and that school, what they were doing was, because in California they have a private test instructors. So basically, school sends a thing package to, or the list to a private instructor, and that instructor then passes or fails the driver. So what this school was doing, it was sending $500 in a package, and with the name of the person, and most of the time the instructor didn't even took their test and passed them. And when they finally caught them, and they basically retested, 80% failed.
So it's kind of like what do people use? Well, back in my day, there was this website you can go and you can basically you marry somebody. I don't know the correct term for it. You could pay like $200 and become a person that could marry somebody. So basically, that's what this is. That's crazy.
Yeah, so 80% failed. On that note, and you have those 80% of those people from that school were unsafe drivers on the road.
Yep.
Didn't know that, didn't have any, didn't have a good training. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to pay them to pass those guys. And now, in my opinion, this is that taking that unsafe driver is taking them out, and people has to,
so you're saying it's actually improving.
I
the
think it's
safety.
improving. I think it's a positive
for sure.
note. It's gonna be more and people who are retiring who actually can't drive as long those hours. Now they're able to basically
someone's got to get out and
they're
fill
not
up
as
the
stressed
tank,
out.
right?
They're not as stressed out. They're not as stressed out while driving, because I drive a lot. So they're not stressed out as driving, and now they're basically they're able to drive longer.
And I think we're, and kind of on that note, we're looking at it too from the employee standpoint. From the employer standpoint, I'm thinking, heck, I don't have to worry about, they can only drive for an 8-hour shift, or where's so-and-so is sick, or we can't find qualified people, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This is a huge opportunity now.
Well,
Right out of-
and then
and
you
right
don't
out
have to
of
worry
high
about
school.
losing your truck.
Right out of high
Right,
school,
right.
18-year-old who plays video games at home, that person can be trained and be on the truck.
Yep. And just to get out to fill up the gas tank and get back in,
Yeah.
right? Even for that, for like a long haul.
Or just charging cable, whatever they're doing, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I think it's better, but again, our government need to get caught up on this thing, and they need to implement these things like, hey, that's great, you build this truck, but now guess what? These are the laws you got to follow.
Yeah.
Well, you're right about that. The government is going to do a little bit of a shakeup, and that's kind of our next topic.
Look at this guy.
Well, economical shakeups and national response. So here we're going to talk about something we discussed. We were kind of surprised that this was actually true, that with the China bank. So
Oh, what's going on there?
things are crashing.
The building collapsing or the banks are collapsing?
Meaning they're getting absorbed. So this is a little bit of a video of people on the streets.
That was the site outside of China's most recent bankrupt bank, the Jiangxi Bank of China. And I wish I could say that this was the first bank that we've seen in China go completely insolvent, but it's not. Because as you can see right now, the banking sector for China is facing an all-out massive crisis where in just 1 week, 40 of their banks have completely disappeared. I have to repeat that. 40 banks have collapsed in 1 week in China. I mean, that is just total catastrophe for that entire economy. And I wish I could say that the Jiangxi Bank was just a small local regional bank, but it's not. Because as you can see, they were the 44th biggest bank in all of China in 2023. Now the question becomes, what's the root cause of all of these banks collapsing at the same time?
Right.
And as you can see, that China's smaller banks were already struggling with bad loans and exposures to the ongoing property crisis. And it gets even crazier than that when you look at these numbers. Because as you can see, some 3,800 such troubled institutions exist. They have 55 trillion won, which is 7.5 trillion US dollars in assets, which is 13% of the total banking system that have been mismanaged and accruing vast amounts of bad loans. $7.5 trillion. Wow.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting.
So, does that mean the U.S. don't have to pay back loan to China?
I don't know.
If the bank is not there, who we paying loan to?
Okay. Yeah. So this is.
Yeah. So Reuters, China's record merge in 8 trillion small bank sectors, raising future.
I mean, if you think about it, there's 40 banks in the last week. We had, I think, the last one was big one for us was SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, about a year ago or so, right? And that was sent shockwaves throughout the U.S. for a week or so.
Can't
Probably
imagine
even more.
7 trillion dollars.
Yeah, that's.
And you've seen those videos where they have these dogs on both sides of the gate. They're just barking at each other. They're just going at it, and then they move the gate out, and they just kind of like walk away. They're like, we were just, as long as we're on the gate, we're good.
Yeah.
We were just doing that, right? So similar way, the governments, they, and some of the give a credit to media too. What they do is they just blow up this thing where, like China was like, oh yeah, we're not bowing down to U.S., we're not doing this. But internally, they're manufacturing, there's videos coming out where their manufacturing are basically shut.
Yeah, shut down.
They don't have any, it's...
What I'm wondering, too, what kind of has this trade war affected some of those banks?
Oh, I did.
I mean, within the last
100%.
two months.
I think it's been going on longer than that.
Well, right, but that's kind of my
it's a
question.
tipping point, right?
Is it the final nail in the coffin?
Well, the reason I bring this up because this thing is saying at least 290 small banks were merged into a larger lenders in 2024.
Okay.
So there's a hit by economic.
I know they've had a
downturn.
major property crisis and issues there.
Yeah, so it's just something that's been kind
Years
of brewing.
kind of in the making.
Yeah,
Seems like.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, maybe is that the reason our administration is not backing out? From,
Right, this is kind of my point,
because they
yeah.
know what's going on internally, what's brewing there internally, and
Putting
they're
more pressure.
and they're like, hey, this is the time, like we have we got the dragon down, and now let's put a ring around his neck.
Yeah.
Let's control it. We got the dragon down, and actually,
Well,
so that's I think that's where maybe this is going. So governments most of the time, all the time, governments know more than what they portray they know.
Yeah.
And they plan on 50 years ahead, so.
Yep.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, this is kind of one of the guys talking about China's perspective on the whole trade idea.
Saying, you guys are all blaming China, you're blaming us, but it's really your own fault, and America now needs a revolution.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs ship your job to China. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap labors. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen.
Yep.
You let the oligarchs fit your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back.
Yep.
I think you need a revolution.
Oh, he has a point.
Well, and that's
Now you
kind
have
of
a point.
I mean, that's
right
what
on,
they call like reality check.
Yeah.
well, and I kind of mentioned something this on my LinkedIn this last week. I said, "What do you guys think about companies and businesses having a Made in America section in their stores, an aisle of only American-made products, supporting local economies, local businesses, and our country?" Because I've lived around the world and I've seen things like that in other places.
Oh yeah, other
where they
countries and
support their own products, their own people.
Yeah, no. That see, sadly, somehow we kind of push that culture here, where if you're trying to support American and you fly American flag, you're labeled certain way. You're labeled like you're not as good of the person, not as welcoming, right? You are like, oh, you're not for the better for the humanity and this and that. You're labeled that way. In my opinion, if your house is on fire and you're trying to say is like, oh, you know what? I heard there's a fire town next door. I'm gonna go and check them out and help them, but still your house is on fire. So when you get back, there is no house. So I think, in my opinion, like and this guy's right. We're part of it.
Yep.
Who is pushing these discount stores? Who is buying at the discount? We are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who is like going out there and trying to find the, certain brand, we find like these knockoffs, or we are helping with those knockoffs.
Why buy an American product for $100 when I can buy one made in China, say for 50 or 40?
Yeah.
When I'm at the store, right?
Yeah. Who's doing that? We are.
Yep.
So yes, we are to blame, and we are so like the addiction of cheap and addiction of that, the things we don't realize is those cheap things, they do not last. They're not as good as what the original technology is. So yeah, I mean, there was a time like we call it like Japanese technology, right? That was kind of like considered Korean or Japanese technology. We don't even look at that anymore. We don't even care. Like and these brands, they said people don't care. Like those companies, they're like, well, let's just make it in China then.
Yep.
And so we are and And the business people, right?
Well, I hate to say it
So-
this way, we're not the only ones either.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you go to other countries, you'll see stuff on the shelves, same thing, made in China.
No. I'm saying as the citizens of whichever country you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we
And-
go to
and the
Italy,
business-
in my wife's hometown now, they have basically a made in China store now. It's a huge store. It's got everything, and it's got clothes. It's like a smaller version of, say, like a Miter or something that we would have here.
So-
it's got everything, and that would have never been there 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So businessmen, like this gentleman mentioned, like, oh, it's sure rich people who went for cheap labor and this and that. Yes, they did. But who could have put a stop to that? We could have.
Yep, 100%.
We could have said, hey, we're not going to buy that. When you stop buying it, they're going to stop making it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you say, are the tariffs actually provoking the very conflict they claim to prevent, or?
So tariff, I think this is what's happening. This should have been a ground up, from bottom up. This should have been where we would have said, okay, we only going to buy what benefits my community.
Yep.
What benefits around me, my state, my community, my country, right? Yep. But what we did is we went for the cheapest. Now, this is coming from top down now. So what government did is like, okay, so we can't change the behavior of people, but let's change the behavior of the companies, which is not ideal because those people are business people, right? They're there to make money.
Yeah.
So-
But if they see their dollar size hurting, which they're going to counter, and they're okay, how do we get past this point?
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of companies are doing that right now.
Yeah, they're going to try to find loopholes if there's a loophole.
Yeah.
So I don't kind of blame the companies because the companies, they're there to make money. It is our dollar, our how we dictate.
Yeah. And through this whole tariff war, obviously, China's kind of pushing back, and,
Oh, yeah.
I
mean, they have to. And
Well-
they have to do what's best for their country, right?
yeah. And this is what this gentleman talks about right now on this show.
The problem is that in this scenario, to use your metaphor, the US has the bigger gun, and so China ends up having more to lose from this trade war, doesn't it? It can't sustain the loss of 15% of its export market, i.e. what you export to the US.
Not at all. China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't
You
care.
can't.
We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely strong words right there.
Well, they have to say that, right?
But they're always thinking long term, whereas we are always thinking quarterly, monthly, weekly, because of the business mindset, the structures that we have, right? Corporations are always thinking, what's my bottom line this quarter? What's our year-end forecast? They're thinking, whereas these guys are thinking 20, 50, 100 years down the road.
Well, that may be true, but, it's probably true. But on the other hand, my thinking is U.S. usually sets the trend, or at least it used to be.
Yes.
We set the trend how things are. So let's say U.S. bans Chinese products 100%, let's say, if that happens. Now, the countries who are at the point of developing now, they are developed countries. They're going to say, hey, if U.S. doing that, that means their standard going to get better than ours. So we're going to be considered like, I don't know, third world country if you use Chinese product, right? So now they has to bring the standard up. They're going to say, all right, we need to pivot. We need to go towards that. So in my opinion, yes, this gentleman, that's his job to defend and share how he has to show off.
Yeah, he has to He has to push back. He has to show that they're
that's his job. He has to do that. The reality behind it may not be true.
Yeah.
True. You're right.
Obviously, we see China pushing back, and I personally believe the whole goal of this tariff war or tariff, however you want to classify it, is to help bring some of the manufacturing back here to the U.S. And the good thing is companies are moving in that direction, and we see that. I don't know about you guys. So I guess
No, definitely. And I think the whole thinking process, right? Like this gentleman, the previous one said, is like because of the cheap labor in China. China is automating a lot of their processes. If they have robots doing the same process there, why can't we do that same process here with that robot?
When they led the world again, I believe last year for robot installations.
Well, yeah, they did.
Again.
They're like 20, 30%, whatever, higher than the closest one.
Yeah. I guess you say, now we're getting towards the end, guys, but, the good thing is, like we said, we were talking about earlier, with companies are starting to move some of their stuff back, and they're starting to look back towards our U.S. labor. Here's, I guess you say, a good little fun story about that.
For weeks, we've been reporting about the real impacts of President Trump's tariffs, but some are hopeful that they have a solution, focusing on manufacturing on American soil and transforming communities. Factories in Southern California think that good times are ahead. NBC4's Brittany Hope shows us a new Southern California company working to bridge the gap.
We started the business. It really wasn't a plan to manufacture for other brands, but more and more people started coming to us once they figured out that it isn't a possibility, because most people didn't even know that it was possible to manufacture shoes in the States.
Handcrafted in LA. In the soul of downtown's art district is Community Made's storefront and its factory. Business is booming.
The last 2 weeks have been pretty crazy. As crazy as the tariff talks are, really for us, it's been a benefit.
With American companies now looking closer to home for factories to make and manufacture their goods. Tanya Menendez calls it nearshoring.
This is the moment for local manufacturers.
A movement she says has been heating up since the COVID-19 pandemic and lingering supply chain issues. So she wanted to help businesses figure out their options and founded Nearshored AI.
Basically, most businesses get excited about is just seeing what's in your neighborhood, seeing what's in your state, seeing what's in the country that you can build here, and also seeing what's close by.
Think of it like Airbnb, but for factories.
Material suppliers, contract manufacturers, and in general, we call those factories and suppliers. Those businesses can list themselves and have a profile on the platform. And in that, they list out their capabilities. And then as a business owner, you can go and you can search for the facilities that basically match your needs.
So that's actually pretty neat.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. She saw a need, she saw an opportunity, and took advantage of it.
No, that is American way, right?
Well, and if you think you're not going to get hit with a tariff, you're not going to get hit with shipping delays that we saw a year or two ago, right? I think if everything's done, quote unquote, locally or domestically, you shouldn't see a lot of that. So that's an awesome platform that she built.
So so that's the thing. It started that thinking process. It may not be like 100% we get all the manufacturing back. Yeah. We get 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever we get back, right? At least it made people think that it is possible here, which we almost gave up on. I don't want to, like in the manufacturing in the U.S., we're great. Like certain things, even the governments, they're like helping. Oh, we want to help the food business, the retail side, this and that. But the retail side is only as good as people who are gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember I believe it was our last podcast where the gentleman talked about with the lighter, how you purchase this with the tariffs. What's happening is the Chinese products or the products that are overseas are getting priced out more, and now it makes sense for us to purchase this manufacturer of this equipment or product in the U.S. And what's happening? They're scaling up. What's happening? they're all of a sudden getting more employees.
They need more employees. Yep.
What's happening?
Local
People are getting
economy
jobs.
starts to
What's
grow.
happening?
Yeah, and
mom and pop
higher
places are
wages,
coming up.
right?
And it may not be the same way of doing things. It may be they have to use the current technology. They have to use the latest, tech and a way of doing things. And those things we have to pivot, and we have done it time and time again before. And I think should not be that hard, but the resistance is always there for a change. But the change is almost necessary. If the caveman didn't change, we wouldn't be here. If they would have said, "No, I don't want that round wheel. I just
gotta evolve."
We gotta evolve. So we have to evolve. We have to start thinking the process where, hey, why they're saying this is impossible. We gotta start asking questions. This is a good story to end. It's possible.
Yeah, and the good thing is, how should I put this? I don't know if this is kind of the first time I heard this situation occurring, as in a local company, all of a sudden now they're getting more and more business because of this. This is a good sign.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's enough. I should put this. Enough of that information is being out there for people to know, like, oh crap, I didn't know this existed. Oh crap, something that maybe was a hobby of mine, all of a sudden could become a business of mine. Have that entrepreneurial mindset.
3D printing is a huge business. A lot of people started the hobby. I know a gentleman who got like 300 3D printers at home.
And what does he make?
He makes a living. That's what I'll say. Yeah. He makes a living with those. And, this is what overseas is doing. They got those machinery. They're making those toys. And why can't we can use similar concept and make it here, and we don't have to worry about, we actually using local energy, we're using local resources, we're contributing the resources. Now, gentleman who has 300 printers, he building that. He's helping the local shippers. He's helping the local stores where he buys it from. He's helping, obviously, he's spending that money locally. And so basically, his 100% of his money is being allocated locally. He got that money in a local bank where we are able to take a local loan. The list goes on and on how, and this is nothing about, the whole globalization. That's great, but there's other ways to do our globalization. We can do that, and but not when your people are hurting and you wanna try this concept of globalization.
Well, one nice thing is, obviously, we're moving in the right direction. Local businesses are coming up, and obviously, let's keep it going.
No, definitely.
So,
okay. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please give us a like, share, comment. Don't forget to subscribe, and we hope that you join us here next time on The Next Move. Thanks.
Definitely. I would say is you see a yellow and a white robot here, and you know the owners of it. Owners, if you see it, help us support us too. Send us a request for a sponsor. We'll take it.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank
See
you.
guys next
Thanks.
week or next month.
Yep.